The Essential Bible, Encountering the Heart of the Living God, Day 6 of 21. We are now about a quarter of the way through the Bible story, so let's just have a quick recap of what we've covered so far. We began with God the Creator, and then the world went wrong. God then chose Abraham to begin to start to put things right again. And about 500 years later, his descendants, the Israelites, had become slaves in Egypt. And so God chose Moses to rescue them. And we're looking at the story of Moses in 3 parts. On day 4, we looked at his birth and his calling. Yesterday, on day 5, we looked at the Exodus from Egypt and also the establishment of the sacrificial system. Today, in our third and final part of Moses, we're going to be looking at principles for godly living. In particular, the 10 Commandments given to Moses on Mount Sinai. So we're going to begin today by encountering the God who commands, looking at some extracts from Psalm 119. How can a young person live a pure life? By obeying your word. With all my heart, I try hard to obey you. Don't let me stray away from your commands. For I have treasured your word in my heart, that I might not sin against you. I praise you, O Lord. Teach me your decrees. I will declare all your laws. I enjoy living by your rules as much as living in riches. I will meditate on your commandments. I will contemplate your ways. I will delight in your decrees and not neglect your words. Open my eyes that I may see the wonderful truths in your teachings. That was some extracts from Psalm 119. Now we're going to be looking at principles for godly living. And we begin with the giving of the 10 Commandments. And this can be found in Deuteronomy chapter 5. Moses called all the people of Israel together and said, Hear, O Israel, the decrees and laws I declare in your hearing today. Learn them and be careful to obey them. God made a covenant with us when we were at Mount Sinai. God made this covenant with all of us who are alive here today, and not with our ancestors. God spoke to us personally from the fire on the mountain. But because you were afraid of the fire and did not go up the mountain, I stood between you and God in order to pass on what he said. And this is what God said. I am the Lord your God, who rescued you from the land of Egypt, where you were in slavery. Therefore, number 1, you must not have any other gods apart from me. Number 2, you must not make idols or carved images that look like anything in the sky above, or the earth below, or in the water. You must not worship them or serve them, because I am a jealous God. I will turn away from 3 or 4 generations of those who hate me and turn away from me. But for those who love me and obey my commandments, I will show mercy and lavish love on 1,000 generations. Number 3, you must not misuse my name or take it in vain, for I will hold you responsible for any misuse of my name. Number 4, observe the Sabbath day. Keep it holy and special as I have commanded. You should work for 6 days a week, but on the 7th day you should rest and dedicate it to me. No person and no animals should do any work on that day. Don't ever forget your slavery in Egypt and how I rescued you by my great power and strength. That is why I have commanded you to keep the Sabbath day holy for me. Number 5. Honour your father and mother, as I have commanded. Then you may have a long life, and it may go well for you in the land that I am giving to you. Number 6. You must not murder. Number 7. You must not commit adultery. Number 8. You must not steal. Number 9. You must not bear false witness against your neighbour. Number 10. You must not covet your neighbour's wife. You must not covet your neighbour's house, land, servants, animals, or anything else belonging to your neighbour. These are all the commands which God spoke with a loud voice out of the fire, the clouds and thick darkness to the whole community assembled on the mountain. God wrote his words on 2 stone tablets and gave them to Moses. God's special concern for the poor and the oppressed. Extracts from Deuteronomy chapters 14 and 15 and Leviticus chapter 25. Each year you must set aside 1/10 of all your crops. Eat this tithe of your grain, new wine, olive oil, and the firstborn of your herds and flocks in the presence of God, in the place where he chooses to be worshipped. Do this so that you may learn to revere God always. At the end of every 3 years, store 1/10 of all that year's crops in your towns. This is stored for the Levites, who have no allotment or inheritance of their own, the foreigners, the orphans, and the widows living in your towns, so they will be able to eat and be satisfied. Then God will bless you in the labour of your hands. Sow your fields and harvest your crops for 6 years, but then in the 7th year let the land rest, leave it unplanted. Then the poor among you may eat whatever grows there, and the wild animals may eat whatever is left. This same rule also applies to your vineyards and olive groves. Count off 7 Sabbath years, making 49 years in total. Then on the 10th day of the 7th month, the Day of Atonement, in the 50th year, sound the ram's horn throughout all the land to proclaim the year of Jubilee. Set it apart as holy and special. Proclaim freedom for everyone throughout the land. In the year of Jubilee, everyone may return to their own clan and the land which was originally allotted to their ancestors. You must never sell land permanently, for it belongs to God. You live on the land as God's tenants, foreigners. If a person has sold land and that person's family has not been able to buy it back before the year of Jubilee, during that year the land must be returned to the family of its original owners. If a fellow Israelite becomes very poor and sells himself to you, you must not treat him as a slave, but as a tenant or hired worker. He must serve you only until the year of Jubilee. Then in that year you must set him and his children free to return to their own clan and the land which was originally allotted to their ancestors. This is because the Israelites are God's servants. He brought them out of slavery in the land of Egypt, so they must never again be sold as slaves. You must not treat your fellow Israelites harshly, as that would dishonour God and show lack of respect for him. In addition, at the end of every 7 years, you must cancel the debts of anyone who owes you money. At that time, you must not demand repayment of any loans you have made to fellow Israelites, because it is the time of God's release. give generously to the poor without a grudging heart. Then, because of your generosity, God will bless you in all your work and everything you do. I am commanding you to be generous in giving to your fellow Israelites, the poor and needy among you, because there will always be poor people in the land. You should do these things because your God is the God of all gods and the Lord of all lords. He is the great, mighty and awesome God who does not take sides and cannot be bribed. He defends the cause of orphans and widows to give them justice. He gives food and clothing to the foreigners living among you to show them his love. Therefore, you must also show love to them because you were once foreigners in the land of Egypt. A call for wholehearted commitment. Extracts from Deuteronomy 6. God told me to teach you all these commands, laws and regulations, so that you will obey them in the land you are to possess across the river Jordan. If you obey all God's commands and laws, then you, your children and grandchildren will respect and honour God all your lives, and you will enjoy long lives. Hear, O Israel, and be careful to obey. Then, in the land flowing with milk and honey, you will have many descendants and become a great nation, just as the God of your ancestors promised. Hear, O Israel, our God is the only God. You must love God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. And you must always keep in your hearts these commands I am giving you today. You must teach them diligently to your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down at night and when you get up again in the morning. As a reminder, write them down, tie them to your hands and wear them on your foreheads. Write them on your doorposts and on your gates. In the future, your children will ask you, what is the meaning of these commands, laws, and regulations that God gave us? Then you should tell them, we were once slaves of Pharaoh in the land of Egypt, but God rescued us by his mighty power. Before our eyes, God performed signs and wonders, great and terrible, against Pharaoh and all his people in Egypt. God rescued us from Egypt to bring us into the land promised to our ancestors. God instructed us to obey all his commands, laws and regulations, so that we would respect and honour him and enjoy long lives and prosper as we do today. Coming up next time, we will encounter the God who leads.